My payday routine. Hey everybody, Paris Jackson here, aka Benny's dad, and on today's video, we're just going to be going over what I do every 2 weeks when my payday hits. So if you're like me and you get paid bi-weekly, you can kind of use this if you're just kind of wondering, hey, where should I put money first, and what's the best kind of way to allocate my resources to, not only tackle debt but also build wealth. So without further ado, we'll kind of talk through that. I'm interested to know, how different is your payday routine from mine? Make sure to leave a comment or like. Please subscribe. I'm trying to grow the viewership of this channel if you find this useful. And we'll get right into it. Let me go back to this here. So basically, I just wanted to walk through the payday routine from start to finish. And really, your payday routine starts actually before you even get paid. So if you can imagine, the paycheck that you receive is dependent on a couple of things, right? First and foremost, obviously, your negotiated salary, the commission that you earn if you're in a commission-based role, will directly impact the amount on your paycheck. So that obviously is part of the payday routine. Is just, hey, did you negotiate a great salary? Is it maybe time to look for a new job? If you feel like maybe your paycheck isn't big enough, ask, hey, are there other opportunities at the company I'm at? Or have I built enough skills to maybe go to a new company and earn more? Because the number one way to get out of any financial crisis is always going to be to make more money, right? You could also spend less, but eventually, you can only reduce your expenses so far. Whereas your income potential grows forever. So your payday routine actually begins before you ever get paid, with salary negotiation, with honestly just working your tail off if you're in a commission role like I am. And then also the other two things you can do to control your actual paycheck once those things are established are your W-4 and your 401k setup. So your W-4 is a form that you submit to payroll that basically tells them how much federal and state tax withholdings to take. If you're an individual that is single with no kids, like, you're more than likely just going to put a 0 or a 1 on that form, and have the most taxes taken out of your check by payroll, and likely on a yearly basis have a larger refund. Now, if you follow somebody like Dave Ramsey and don't want a refund or don't want to loan the government some money, then you can adjust your W-4 and put more exemptions on there so they take less out of your paycheck and you have more take home on a biweekly cadence, or whenever your paycheck hits monthly cadence, or the 1st and 15th for some people. So keep that in mind, that your W-4 can be used to create some extra margin in your monthly expenses, by basically reducing how much withholdings is taken from your check. Now, your tax bill doesn't necessarily go away just because you change your withholdings, right? It doesn't mean like, oh, they're taking out less taxes, I'm not going to owe that at the end of the year. What you owe at the end of the year is still going to be what you owed. The refund that you receive on an annual basis, if you do receive one, is the overage you paid getting returned to you. So if you can imagine, I know a lot of people don't pay with cash these days, but if I had cash and I go to the store and whatever I'm buying costs me $5 and I pay with a 10, well, they refund me $5, right? So it's the same thing with the federal government. If you owe, 10 grand, but throughout the year you pay 12 grand, well, the government refunds you 2 grand, in the form of a tax refund at the end of the year. So by adjusting your W-4, you can kind of control, hey, if I know my tax bill is going to be 10 grand, well, I want exactly 10 grand taken out of my checks throughout the course of the year and no refund at all. Or if you say, you know what, I don't mind overpaying on a monthly basis because I kind of like the forced savings of, getting this big check on an annual basis, by all means do that too. But whatever you choose to do with your W-4 is going to directly impact what you receive in your paycheck on a biweekly or monthly basis. The other thing that contributes to that is whether or not you participate in your employee-sponsored 401k or 403b program. Now, the nice thing about the 401k, even the Roth 401k, is that obviously there's no decision making done here. Once you elect to sign up for the 401k, that money is just automatically deducted from your paycheck and put into a 401k. or 403b, whether Roth or traditional. Now, we'll make a separate video about the tax implications and all that stuff. But if you are contributing to your 401k and you get that set up, well, then you will reduce your take home pay, by the amount that you contribute to the 401k. Now, it's a very good idea to at least get whatever your company is offering as a match. Now, there's some companies that match your 401k contributions dollar for dollar as an employee benefit. Or if you're like me, we get 50% up to the first 6% or something, like some complex strategy of percentage, where it's basically 50 cents on the dollar, or maybe 25 cents on the dollar, depending on your employer and how they have the 401k set up. But electing to participate in that 401k or not also, impacts the paycheck that you receive. So really, the payday routine starts well before you even get paid, from salary negotiations, W-4 setup, and of course, whether or not you participate in the employee 401k plan. So just keep that in mind as we kind of go through this. But now let's say, all right, all that's set up, I got it the way I want it. What do I actually do on my payday? And so first things first is you want to handle any of the fixed costs. And by fixed costs, I really just mean like anything that can't be either put on auto pay with a credit card, or is an upcoming purchase that you're going to need. So the fixed costs can include your rent or your mortgage, utilities, insurance, all of those bills that you're going to get on a monthly basis. These might even include some of your debt repayment if you're working on that, in here as well under the fixed costs. And essentially, when you get paid, the first thing I do is to basically just look at the next 2 weeks and just understand, okay, I know I have my mortgage. I can't put that on my credit card. I know I have, my car payment. I know I have to Venmo XYZ person for, a ticket purchase or something like that. None of these purchases can go on my credit card. And the reason for that is that because the credit card points system exists and you basically get rewarded for purchases made on your credit card, and as long as you pay off your statement balance on a monthly basis, there's kind of no reason not to use a credit card as much as possible, assuming that you can responsibly pay off your statement balance every month, because that's the real trick, right? The credit card companies offer these different rewards to entice you into using your credit card, with the hope that you basically retain a balance month over month, and they're able to recoup the awards from interest payments. So if you're like me, you're a credit card company's worst nightmare, which is I put everything on the credit card, I let them run up their charges, but I pay off my credit card every month. So I reap the rewards and I never pay any interest. So I'm a credit card's worst nightmare. But when it comes to my paycheck, the first thing I do is look for those things that I cannot pay with a credit card, or that would cause like an exorbitant fee if I pay for my credit card. So take something like rent. Like if your rent is $2,000 and they charge a 5% credit card surcharge, well, I'm likely not going to use my credit card on that, because if I am charged 5% more but make 1.5%, I'm losing that arbitrage and it doesn't make sense. So I'm fine to just, use my actual debit card or straight from my bank account to pay those costs. So that's what I do first, because obviously I need to keep the four walls up, keep the lights on, keep my insurance paid, pay all my bills. So when I say fixed costs, I really just mean, pay for my mortgage, pay for, my car note if it applies, pay off my credit card, statement balance, all those things that are like fixed and don't really change month to month, or really just don't get paid by my credit card, because my credit card pays for anything. So once those things are paid, the next two steps kind of happen simultaneously, and that's to fund my Roth IRA and eliminate any debt at the same time. So fully funded Roth IRA with 26 bi-weekly paychecks is $270 per paycheck, which can be a lot for some people. We'll go through some numbers here in a minute. But I make sure to do that because in addition to the 401k, in terms of retirement, the Roth IRA is one of the most powerful tools that you have in your tool belt, because the money goes in already having been taxed and then grows tax-free until your retirement. That's why there is that $7,000 cap, because the government basically knows how powerful this is. And if everybody chose Roth for everything, the government would be having a bunch of senior citizens not collecting any retirement, not collecting any tax income, because everybody's just utilizing the Roth so much. So to my guesstimation, that's kind of why they put the cap on it. And the other side of this next step is to pay off any high interest debt, pay off the credit card, like I mentioned, in its entirety. I always like seeing that zero balance, even if the statement balance is lower than the total balance, just pay it off. That way you don't have to worry about it. This is also the step where you would tackle any student loans, car loan payment, any personal loan debt, medical debt, any type of debt would basically come at this step. And I'm a big proponent of, fund the Roth IRA, fund the 401k, even while you're still in debt, assuming that you can make the payments and make extra payments and kind of have a choice. And the reason being is that, the power of compounding works both ways. Like if you have a interest of, 5.43%, but you're able to invest in your Roth at a 6, 7, 8%, you will pay off more. You will end up paying more interest in the long run. But at the end of the day, your compounded dollars will have so much more time to grow that by the time you're of retirement age, you'll be really grateful that you actually spent the time in these earlier years funding and maxing out the Roth IRA. And we'll get into some investment numbers in just a moment, so you can kind of see what I mean here. But really a powerful step here is also going to be eliminate any other debt, by lobbing it towards there. Now, once everything is paid, so you have your fixed costs paid, your 401k funded, your Roth funded, you eliminated your credit card debt, then the next step would be to do the taxable brokerage and to beef up that emergency fund. So a couple videos ago, I talked about my take on an emergency fund and how, I don't really think that an emergency would come where I need more than a month of expenses, and went through all that. Please watch that video if you haven't yet. But this is the step where I would come back and either start investing in a taxable brokerage if I've eliminated all my debt and, have obviously the Roth maxed out and still money remaining. Then I would either put it in a taxable brokerage or continue to beef up that emergency fund. And honestly, you could do them both at the same time. Like that's currently what I do. I have a few months of savings tucked away in a high yield savings. I don't quite have that 6-month or 12-month that's recommended by most financial talking heads. They all recommend either 6 months or 12 months if you're really in a high volatility profession. So I contribute 80% of what's left over at the end of my paycheck to a taxable brokerage where it can grow and invest in the stock market. But I still attribute a certain portion to building up those emergency reserves. Reason being, one, it's also always nice to have cash on the side. I mean, the stock market just this year in 2025 showed why it's a good idea, because you can get, some shares and investments, sometimes 15, 20, 30% from all-time highs if you just have cash on the sidelines being ready to deploy. But more importantly, I do feel very comfortable in my job and my career and where I'm at. But emergencies happen and they're, unexpected. That's what makes them emergencies. I could go get hit by a car or get some disease or something like that I can't quite foresee, that may have a slim chance of happening. But one of my buddies once told me the odds are slim but never zero, right? So continuing to build up those cash reserves is important. And I believe that step comes after having eliminated all debts, especially credit card debt, funding the Roth IRA and funding the 401k. So that's kind of the order of operations to go through. And now I kind of wanted to walk through an example. So I have a person here who's Sandy. Let's say Sandy is 25 years old, lives in California, and makes the average annual income, which thanks to Google helping me out, the average annual income for California is, in fact, $68,917. Let me pull this up for you. So Sandy makes the average annual, which brings her average monthly salary to $5,743. I just broke my computer trying to blow everything up, but hopefully you can see that better now. I'm also going to take me off the screen. So, oh, I just made myself huge. Hi guys, I'm trying to get off here. Okay, so Sandy has an annual income of $68,917. So her average monthly salary is $5,743.08. She invests 6% to her 401k. So that's $344.59 going into her 401k. And let's assume that she's just invested in some, S&P 500 mutual funds, and having invested in her 401k, her true take-home income is $4,588 per month. If we divide that by 2, that's about $22.94 per paycheck, right? So if you're following my payday routine, that would mean that when she takes home her income, about half of it would go towards rent, utilities, car payment, all of her fixed costs, basically her day in, day out, with the ultimate goal here being to reduce this number down to about 20 or 30%. Obviously, she would need to make more in order to do that. But as of right now, investing as much as she can, which is about 10% of her gross monthly income, right? She's investing 10 through the Roth IRA and then an additional 6 through the 401k. So that's 15% invested, with the rest going into fixed costs, and then that final bucket of, paying off the credit card and having some leftovers. So these are real actual numbers that I believe are attainable. Maybe not for somebody that wants to live by themselves in a lavish lifestyle, but somebody that's, comfortable maybe having a roommate if they want to live in a very expensive part of town. These numbers are kind of how it shakes out. Now, let me go through the rest of it. So her take home on a monthly basis is $4,588.72. We already decided that half of that is going to go to rent, utilities, car payment, anything that's a fixed monthly cost that she can't, basically put on her credit card. The Roth IRA is fully funded at $540 a month. That's $270 per paycheck, which brings her total investing amount up to $844.59 per month. That's getting invested automatically. And then she still has 30% of her income to spend on everything else that can get paid with a credit card. And this includes, food, gas, going out to eat, everything that's involved with that. She still has 30% of her money to do that. So, $1,300 may seem kind of like a lot or a little bit, depending on, your personal habits. Like, can you go out to eat every single meal for $1,300? Probably not, right? And still have money to pay for gas and clothes and Amazon purchases and everything else that you want to do in life. Like, you probably won't be able to do that. But if you're smart and frugal with your budgeting, then you will be able to, right? You will be able to pay for those things. And maybe you do go out to eat once a week and you go out to the bars twice a month or 3 times a month, 4 times a month, right? This is a way to budget so that you can build wealth, still have fun, still live your life, and ultimately, have some money to save and invest. Now, the most important part of this graphic is the remaining 5% that's dedicated to what I call leftover, right? So the leftover portion of the paycheck, and if you're like me and you have variable income, this is what makes automating your finances very hard. Like, I have a commission-based job, so my income is variable, which is why my payday routine is built almost like a waterfall, where I'm just like, okay, let me take care of all my bills first, let me fund my Roth IRA as if it was a bill. Let me pay off my credit card, the whole balance, and then whatever's left over, I can use to either pay off debt or invest additionally or build up my emergency fund. If you have a more stable paycheck where, hey, I know I'm getting the same amount every 2 weeks, then you're able to automate your finances much better. A lot of this can be done automatically. You can subscribe to more of like a percentage-based budget rather than, kind of a month by month the way I do. But because, I have a job that's commission-based, this is the way that I've automated my finances. Now, so the leftover portion is the portion that can be used a number of ways. It could be used, like I said, to pay off debt. It could be used to have fun. It could be used to invest. It could be used as a combination of the three, because everything else is handled, assuming you stay under this. We'll call it $1,400 for the credit card bill. And just to go to show how powerful these different numbers are, let me pull up this debt repayment slide here. Okay, so then the California average for debt is also $13,500, right? And your estimated interest rate of 6%. If your expected monthly payment on this is $377.20. So you're using every single dime of that leftover to pay this off. It'll take you about 3 years and 4 months to actually pay it off with an interest of $1,400, right? So that's why I'm saying, like, hey, for $1,400, you probably don't need to rush this too much, and can just pay it off, as it goes. But anyway, so if you want to use the leftover to pay off your debt, great, do that. Keep in mind, if we come over here to the handy dandy investment calculator, it's pulled up here. Right, we said Sandy's 25. She's investing $344.59 in her 401k and $540 per month in her Roth IRA for a total of $844.59. If she's starting at zero with 40 years and doing $844.59 per month at, the prevailing S&P 500 return is 12%. She's able to do that. She's going to have $8 million. And this is not adjusted for inflation. So if we adjust for inflation, assuming a 4% rate of inflation, which is actually higher than typical inflation has been, but these are for my ultra conservative, still have 2.7 million in combined retirement by following this plan, with still money left over to invest in, have fun and do all the things, with this leftover 377.74. So it's powerful. It's powerful just following a very simple plan of this 401k investment, maxing out the Roth IRA, and then ultimately, having money left over. So this would be what I recommend for most people as their payday routine, to make sure to pay your fixed cost 50% or less of your take home, right? You have 30% on your credit card bill that can go towards, food, groceries, gas. Food and groceries are the same thing, but I mean like eating out, Uber services, all of those things kind of fall within that bucket. And then, making sure to max out that Roth IRA, build up the emergency fund if you need one. And then with the $300 or $400 that are left over, you can, maybe that's where you build a travel fund out of, a travel sinking fund, or, start saving up for your next big car, or start saving up for XYZ thing. I think where people get into a lot of trouble with this is that they don't really understand their numbers first and foremost. So that makes them pay for, maybe more housing than they can afford. Because if you can imagine, hey, I'm taking home $4,500 a month. I can afford a $3,000 studio apartment, which I'm paying for by myself. Well, that significantly reduces the amount of money that you have to put towards these other things, savings, investments, paying off debt, just living day to day out, like excursions, things of that nature. So, that's where people get in trouble. But if, Sandy can do it on the average annual income, I believe that you can do it too. And thanks for watching the video. Hopefully, my payday routine is not super crazy and it's something that you guys are able to emulate if you don't quite have a plan. And if you are already doing some form of this, let me know in the comments. Make sure to like and share, subscribe, and we'll catch you next week for another video.